Welcome to Buckets. This is your Buckets NBA Finals props preview. I am your host, Brandon Anderson, here with the future Jays, Joe Dellera and Jim Turvey. I don't know how I never got to be the future Bs. Maybe there's just one of me. We're the future, all of us. So we are sponsored by BetMGM. We are giving you all sorts of props today. Don't forget, if you haven't, check out the Buckets feed this week. We are coming at you from every direction we can. They gave us a week in between games, and we were like, let's fill it up with every angle we can come up with. Matt Moore and I did like 2 hours of series preview podcast content that should be in your feed already, split into 3 parts because we love you, and it's probably extra downloads. We love us too, so check that out. Nothing But Bet, our live show coming on Wednesday. Buckets Live coming after games. We've got How to Bet the Mavericks. We've got How to Bet the Celtics episodes coming. We've got a Game 1 preview coming. Don't forget the WNBA Buckets feed. We have all sorts of basketball coming for you. On today's episode, props. We are all about props, mostly series long, some game-to-game stuff, things that we'll be watching for to circle back on later. All 3 of us, I think, are on different game prop episodes. And, of course, lots of articles and picks on Twitter and all sorts of places. And by the way, if you didn't get enough Brandon, Joe, and Jim, right after we finish recording this one, we will be over on Joe Dellera's podcast, Cash That, doing more of a series preview with the same 3 of us. So catch us over at Cash That there as well. I think I counted about 20 bets in here today. So we got plenty to talk about, guys. We're not going to go around the horn. We're just going to jump in. The way I decided to frame this is we're going to go player by player. So we're going to hit some of the big name players, start with Luka at the top, obviously, and we'll kind of talk about associated bets and what we're thinking about with that player, and then wrap up with other thoughts at the end. So let's get into it. Luka Doncic, obviously the star among stars at these NBA Finals. He is favored to lead the series in points. He's favored heavily to lead in assists. He is favored to lead in threes, not in rebounds. I don't know how many times we've seen Luka not favored to lead a something. So, Joe Dellera, you are looking at Luka for one of these categories. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think scoring leader is the most obvious one, right? So this is as high as like minus 225, depending on the book. So, but also as low as minus 136. So you really want to line shop this one and make sure that you get the best value, because it really like significantly swings the way that you should be betting on this. If you can get, I think like even at the minus 200, he should still lead, but it's significantly less valuable, obviously, than like a minus 175, a minus 150, a minus 136. And at the end of the day, when you look at this, in terms of who is available in the series, Luka is the clear number 1 option and like undisputed number 1 option between both of these teams. Like, I know that we can talk about Tatum and what Tatum can do and how he can score. And like, he didn't even feel like he had a great series against Indiana. Still, he didn't win the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Still somehow got 4 of the 9 votes, right? But he still edged Jaylen Brown by a couple points in scoring. So he still is able to score even with Jaylen Brown, like in an ideal series for him, which is what I thought the Indiana series was. As for Luka, he's just going to get everything. Like, he's always going to score. He's going to be the guy that the offense goes through. If the offense gets like in a rut, he's going to be the one that says like, all right, well, give me the ball. Like, I'm going to go get a bucket. But if the offense is humming, he's also going to be a major reason why the offense is humming for the Dallas Mavericks. So throughout the postseason, he's averaging 28.8 points per game. Next closest is Tatum at 26, and then Jaylen Brown at 25. Kyrie Irving's all the way down at 22.8. So that includes that like kind of rough Oklahoma City series where he didn't really, I don't know if he was hurt. I think it was a combination of kind of being hurt and Lou Dort, but either way, Luka is still, I think, the best bet for this, given the fact that there isn't like a true primary option for the Boston Celtics outside of, the combination of Tatum and Brown, and they can kind of cannibalize each other with this type of prop.
Yeah, combination of hurt and Lou Dort is how I describe my NBA existence sometimes. So I resonate on that one. I'm on this one as well. I like the Luka points leader. Minus 136, you're looking at like 58% implied. Joe, you said minus 225-ish at some books. That's getting up over closer to 70%. So 58 to 70%. I mean, it's hard when we're moving that direction on odds. We're not really giving up a ton of percentage points. We're just losing more if we're wrong about it.
Yeah.
But he just should be the leader, right? Like, regardless of that percentage in the range, I think this is still a bet that's probably in our favor, in part because obviously Tatum is the guy that this is largely a head-to-head against. Tatum is usually around 25 to 27 per game in the playoffs. That's been consistent year to year. Joe, you said Luka's at 28 something this year. That's down. His career is 31.3 for the playoffs. That's down from his season average as well. So I think really we almost should expect that to go up, if anything, based on a lot of data that we have. If you look at one book, you can bet Luka versus Tatum head to head, and they have it priced what I think is pretty accurately, which is Luka minus 250. So if he's head to head to beat Tatum minus 250, well, who else are the options here? I like that's not nobody. It's Brown, it's Kyrie Irving. Part of the reason I like this bet is because I'm down on Kyrie. We'll get into him in a little bit. But really, I mean, Luka's going to get 26, 27, 28 even in a pretty bad series. So how many guys in the series can really get to like a 30-point per game average? It feels like just Tatum to me. Like the floor is that high with Luka. So agreed. I like this one a lot. This is one of my actual favorite plays on this podcast. So jumping in right away with that. Jim, you're looking not at scoring with Luka, more with assists on him.
Yeah, I'm looking at a very specific, they have these exact lines that they'll give out, and they've got his assist line at 8.7 assists right now. I really like the under on this. He's a player. So we look at, often they make these numbers based off the regular season lines, right? But we got to remember that pace slows down in the postseason, and they adjust that sometimes, but sometimes in these numbers we can see, little spots to find unders still to hit. So his playoff average is right around 8.8 in all fairness, down from 9.8 in the regular season. That's true of his potentials as well. It's not like he's just getting unlucky. It's that it has been a slower pace and he has been giving less potential assists. So those have dropped by almost 2 actually from around 17 to 15. The Celtics also, we know the Celtics defense is elite. They give up the 5th fewest assists during the regular season, in part because they gave up the 5th fewest points per game. Really good defense. And I think that in this matchup, they're going to be able to handle Luka to a degree. Like their personnel is about as strong switching 1 through 5. No team's going to fully be able to switch 1 through 5 and have no consequences at Luka. But I don't think they'll be scrambling as much as some of the other teams. And it's really when it's that scrambling that Luka starts to pick teams apart with the assists, right? Kind of picture him. He's got a defender that he's just licking his chops. So instantly a second person has to come over. He fires a bullet past the corner, 3. That's an assist for Luka. Boston, I don't think is going to have to scramble as much because there's no, of their main core players, there's no player that you're instantly like, oh no, Rudy Gobert, as good of a defender as he is out on the 3-point line against Luka. We should send the second player, even if, Finch and the Wolves maybe didn't do that in that one late game scenario. But so many of Luka's assists do come off of kind of scrambling defenses. I don't think Boston's going to be doing that as much. He also is going to have a very tough individual matchup. I think Tatum will be guarding Luka for decent chunks, but I think they're going to be willing to switch things. Like I said, they have that flexibility. So if they're not in scramble mode much, I think that means fewer assists for Luka. His playoff numbers of assists have already dropped. The potentials are there too. This isn't just, a little bit of bad shooting. The lights are brightest in the finals. So some of those guys who he's kicking out to for those threes, so many of his assists are for threes. That's a little bit trickier as well. Boston in that lob game, I think they're going to be able to do a pretty good defensive job against that. Luka's one of the best lob creators out there, so he's obviously going to get some. I think this number is a little bit high, so I'm going to be looking at his assists under 8.7 that you can get in the market right now.
Yeah. So Jim, the game 1 assist line for Luka Doncic is 8.5, which makes sense given this line that they're giving us here. Is this a game-to-game play for you as well? Like, is that when you'd look at it in game 1 for the under, or is this one that you kind of want to stay away and just get the series outcome?
I don't mind playing it for game 1. It is a little bit lower there. So obviously I think that's probably taking into account that there's some of this game 1. I think maybe all 3 of us, I think definitely me and you, Brendan, are on game 1 Celtics in general. So maybe a little bit of that is baked in. I mean, we're talking, 0.2 of an assist here. It's not like a massive difference, but my guess is maybe that's baked a tiny bit in. I think you hit the series one, and if the first game comes in really low, then you start to double down throughout the games, especially if the potentials aren't there. Always check the potentials after the game as well. It might be one of those where they can't adjust hard enough. If it really is that, Boston's defense is elite and they're really not having to scramble and they're not giving up those, open threes that teams have to give up against a Luka run offense at times, but maybe Boston has really figured out a good way to, keep him in relative check and not give up those open looks. Then it's one where the books aren't going to be able to adjust quickly enough, and we really start to hammer game 2, 3, 4, etc.
Yeah, I think the point
another
that you're
thing
making...
too, just this is very niche thought, but like the fact that the game 1 line for Luka assists is 8.5, it could be 8.7 or 8.1. It doesn't matter. He can only get 8 or 9 or whatever other number. But series average, the one that we're betting here, it does matter. 8.7 versus 8.5 versus 8.1. Joe, I know you've kind of talked through before on, okay, for this bet, if the series goes 5 games, does it kind of round down or round up? Do we need the extra one there? Like 8.7, immediately in my head, I'm like, okay, well, that does mean in order for it to go over, if it goes 6 games, the outcome that I think we all think is the most likely, that's just over the 0.67. It does round up. So very niche, but a thing, if it's going to be cutting it close, is a thing to keep an eye out for. Joe, you're a resident every game in the series bet guy. So Luka Doncic is the every game in the series guy. What do you think about some of his props here?
So I mean, look, like this is a little gross. I'm sure our colleague Mike Fiddle would like these because they're minus 500. But look, so Luka in the playoffs, right? The way that some of these props are, it's for him to like record 5 rebounds or 5 assists in every game. Which when you look at that, you're like, come on, man, like that's crazy, right? But they're minus 500, so a little gross, right? But through the playoffs this season, he's had 5 assists or more in every single playoff game. And he's also had 5 rebounds or more in every single playoff game. He's actually had 6 rebounds or more in every single playoff game. So both of these props, like, they're super heavily juiced. But at the same time, I don't think that they're necessarily being priced correctly. The floor for Luka is so high. Obviously, there's like a little bit of, let's call it blowout risk, right? Like, and that's something that you always kind of need to encapsulate with some of these bets. But I think that that's a little bit more relevant on the top end, right? Like if you're betting on somebody to go get and we're going to talk about some of these later. But like if you're betting on somebody to get like 12 rebounds every game or 15 points every game, but it's like on the high end of what normal would be for them, I think you're taking on a little bit of extra risk because the blowouts, because the minutes could be wonky at the end of the game. With a guy like Luka, 5 and 5 for him, he can get that in the first quarter, he can get that in the first half, like almost regardless whether or not it's a blowout. And Dallas has also been one of those teams that has like hung in on games where you think that they're getting blown out, they're down 25, and next thing you know, they're winning the game. And the way Boston plays, I think that there's going to be like a less of a likelihood that you throw in the white flag as early because of the way Boston plays and also because of the way that Dallas plays. So I think that the floor is high. And I know that these are gross, like they're minus 500s, but at the same time, I think they're winners and you can use them to kind of build up your bankroll a little bit too.
If you were going to play only one of those as a listener, would you choose the 5 rebounds or the 5 assists? They're both the exact same line, minus 500, correct?
Yeah, they're both the exact same line, minus 500. I think I would have to go with the rebounds just based on the fact that he's got 6 rebounds in every game, and then we're looking at 5, right? So he's only got 3 games at 6, and the other 3 are at 7. Other than that, we're looking at double-digit boards for Luka in almost every other game. So I think that the floor with the rebounds is a little bit higher. And to me, the assist requires your teammate to make the shot. Yep. So like Jim kind of alluded to, one of the issues with Luka with the assists under is, like maybe the guys don't make the shot, especially because Boston, like Dallas relies heavily on that corner 3. Boston is the best in the league at limiting the looks and limiting the makes as well. So that's one way that you can see the assists kind of go under. So if I had to pick between one of them, if you were going to lay the juice on one, I would definitely go with the rebounds in this spot.
Yeah, I agree. You don't want to lose your bet here because like Derek Jones Jr. went 0 for 6 on Luka 3-pointers for the night or something like that. Exactly. I don't need Derek Jones putting up my free Luka money that I'm trying to get here. One other note, you had this note, Joe, but I think I'll speak for all 3 of us. I think we all agree with this. If you are on Dallas in the series, if you are wanting to bet Dallas to win the series, do we all 3 agree that a true proxy for betting Dallas to win the series is in fact Luka Doncic to win MVP Jim's giving me a side eye here. So Joe, I'll let you make the case for why you think it is, and then Jim, you can answer accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't really see a scenario where where Dallas wins and Luka isn't the best player on the floor. Like I really struggle to see a path for Dallas to get there otherwise. And like, I know that Kyrie Irving, you know, there's some of the narrative there, et cetera. But at the same time, Luka's having like bad games and he's putting up like 30-point triple doubles. So like, I think that's the thing with Luka. So, and the other thing is too, I like it a little bit more. Not only are you getting a couple more cents on, you know, on your bet, right? But if like I know LeBron didn't do it, and like LeBron probably should have done it in a year, in like a finals prior, but like Luka does kind of fit a mold for a guy that like could win a finals MVP on a losing team. Like if it went 7, scoring 40 points a game, like something like that. Like I think that you loosely have an extra out. I don't think it's likely, but at least it's there, you know? So that's just kind of my thought with that.
Jim?
So maybe it's a perfect way to transition into Kyrie a little bit, but I'll say this. Brandon, I tailed probably 99.9% of the bets that you give out. I'll kind of light spoil that you are definitely interested in not being on Kyrie in the series. And I'm a little bit nervous. Like I probably will end up tailing you. Your record speaks for itself. But when I first saw the bet, was like, oh, I don't know. Again, this is where we're verging into a little bit of narrative, but again, with the MVP comes some narrative. And I do think that Kyrie I have doubted him. I have doubted the Mavs all season. I don't want to get burned one last time because I doubted Kyrie, and then he does what he did in, you know, his previous finals and has an absolutely incredible couple performances. He was never going to win it over LeBron, but I don't think Luka is at the level of LeBron. And I think that Boston, they've got good matchups for Kyrie, but the whole thing with Kyrie is always the matchups almost don't matter as much with him. It's more, is he going or is he not going? Yeah. Now, I think that gets overrated to a little bit of a degree, and Boston does have 2 perfect guards for him. But if Drew is maybe starting on Luka, and, you know, Derek White, we've seen Kyrie do crazy things around crazy defenders. You know, I think that to go from -220 to -250 isn't enough to encapsulate the weird amorphic Kyrie Irvingness of it all. So I would just lay I mixed up numbers here. What is Luka MVP versus?
It's plus 180
plus 180 versus,
and then Luka's like over plus 200 depending on where you're looking. Like I think I've seen as high as 225.
Okay.
So it's
a pretty
like
tight window.
It's like 40 cents or so. Yeah. It's still tight, but yeah, I get what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I wondered what you thought about the Kyrie thing. So let's transition into him. We've done enough on Luka. So obviously Kyrie is the other major Maverick player here. And I'm the one of the 3 of us that has the biggest Kyrie stance. I seem to be the one of all of us at Action, which does make me a little queasy to be the one guy. But like, I can just see having this strong stance against Kyrie and being on Boston in the series. And we get to game 1. And like, look, the Timberwolves fan in me just watched Ant interviewed after game 7 against the Nuggets, and he's excited. They get the win. I got Kyrie next round. What happens? We go to Minnesota in game 1. Kyrie comes out in the first quarter and drops like 7,000 points right on Ant's head. And I'm just like ready for like Kyrie returns to Boston with all the narrative in game 1 and drops like 45 in game 1. And I've lost every bet that I have basically because like everything is buried. Kyrie's scoring is off. Boston is down 0-1. The game 1 trends are out the window. Like Kyrie Irving is that good that he could just do that and just like ruin everything. That said, I am betting in this series on, I think Boston can in fact beat Luka as the best player. He's going to be the best player in the series. I think they can win that way. I think that's the story of the playoffs so far. I think we have seen consistently almost every star in the playoff lose as the best player in the playoffs. So I think actually Boston might have the perfect team to win the title this year because they don't ever have the best player in the series. They can let all the other stars lose. Sorry, Boston fans. What Boston can't afford is for Kyrie Irving also to be great. They can win with Luka as the superstar. They can't have Kyrie be the second star or even like the 3rd best player in the series. And I think that they are set up, Boston, to defend Kyrie better than any other team would be able to defend him. Because, like, look, the center is going to guard the center, whoever it is. Whatever the big man is, each team will have one. They're guarding each other. Boston, otherwise, when the starters are out there, has Jrue Holiday and Derek White and Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. A couple of those guys are going to be giving everything they've got into Luka. And in most teams, that means that some other scrub, not good defender, is now stuck with Kyrie, and that's where Kyrie can let you up. That's not the case with Boston. There are no bad defenders on the team. So even if Tatum and Brown are locking in for that part of the game on Luka, you still have the best defensive backcourt in the league in Derek White and Jrue Holiday defending Kyrie Irving. So for his career, Kyrie Irving, we talked about this on the series preview, so I'm just going to kind of summarize here. The most difficult opponent that he's had as an individual for his career is Derek White. He is 2-12 straight up against Derek White in his career. That's for at least 10 games. Eighth most is Jrue Holiday. He's 8-16 against Jrue Holiday. Now look, you don't win one-on-one. These are team games. I'm the king of saying all that, but it's not great. It's not great to do that. Derek White got traded to the Celtics in February 2022. Since then, Kyrie has played Boston 10 times. He's 0-10 with a 0.1 BPM. So basically like replacement starter level. He has a 42% field goal percentage, and he's averaging 20.7 points a game. Those aren't terrible numbers. It's Kyrie. He's still going to hit some shots. He's still going to get to the rim. He's still going to do Kyrie stuff. In the playoffs so far, his numbers have reflected that. He had the same sort of trend. He was great against the Clippers. I thought he was the best player against the Clippers for Dallas, not Luka. Since then, he's down about 20.8 points a game, right at that same number. The shooting is down. The scoring is down per game. BPM 0.3 the last two rounds against Shea and Dort and Ant and all these other good defenders that the Clippers didn't have, but that his other opponents did have and that the Celtics do have. So I think that this is not going to be a great Kyrie series. I think it's possible, because it's Kyrie, that none of that matters and he just makes all the shots and he does all the stuff. I also think it's possible that the narrative that could be in his favor of like, oh, I came and stomped on the Celtics logo and now I'm going to beat them in the finals too, could very much go the other way. And he could like have a terrible series and have some awful games in Boston. Like that's also a narrative thing that could happen. I don't know which one it is. None of us know, but I think it's fair to acknowledge both sides of that. My favorite prop for the finals really is Kyrie Irving under 24.1 points a game. Jim, I asked you about playing game to game. I'm not playing game to game. I don't want the smoke. I don't need the game where Kyrie drops 30 on me. I'm pricing that in. I'm going to get that game. I'm going to give that quarter up. That's somewhere that's in my bet. I just think there's going to be enough other quiet quarters like we've seen really even throughout the playoffs so far. Even in the good games, there are a lot of games where Kyrie is pretty quiet for three quarters, then has one really big statement quarter. Frankly, a lot of times in the fourth quarter when Dallas is winning. So the fact that I like Boston in the series makes me feel a little better also about the bet, because I'm probably not going to get those Kyrie fourth quarter explosions if I'm right about Boston winning. So I like the under 24.1. This is a bet that I targeted before I saw it posted, and I was hoping we'd just see something in the 22s, 22.5, 22 something. So when I got it over 24, I have to love this because I was going to love an under 22 anyway, and I couldn't believe we got the number. So that's my Kyrie Irving take. I'm alone on it. Joe, you are on Kyrie Irving for assists, not points. Another every game bet. Come on, we got to stop this, Joe. What are you on here?
Look, I love these every game bets. I think that in a way, like you're really just parlaying a bunch of pieces, right? The part of why I like this, I'm on Kyrie Irving 4+ assists in every game. This is only, I've only been able to find this on one book, but it's plus 500. The reason I like this, because I'm seeing a lot of 5, or really to get for him to record 5+ or 6+, and I don't like those. The 4+ I like because there's just a floor for Kyrie, right? Like his floor is 3. He's had more than 4, or he's had 4 or more assists in 14 of 17 playoff games. And the 3 misses are all at 3. He's averaging 9.6 potentials. So just the conversion rate here, I expect to see, bigger minutes from Kyrie in the finals. I don't think that we're going to see, like games in like the lower 30s or anything like that. I think we're going to see games like pushing 40, a little bit over 40. And I think that that's really important for Kyrie. He's averaging 5.2 assists per game. He's averaging, in 40.2 minutes per game during the playoffs. I think that this is just at the number. I'm willing to take the chance here and just kind of keep essentially rolling over a 4+ assist bet throughout the course of the finals. The concern is always the longer the series goes, the less valuable these kind of are. But at the same time, I think that this line, I think, is just a little bit short because I think that Boston is probably going to use like Derek White on Kyrie. Derek White's probably their best like on-ball defender, like him and Drew, I would say. And I think that could force the ball out of Kyrie's hands a little bit for a lot of the reasons that Brandon likes his points under. That's a part of why I like this like assist over essentially. So I think it's worth a shot here at plus 500. I don't think I wouldn't play a 5+. I wouldn't play a 6+, but I think that the 4+ is like a little bit mispriced based on the minutes floor. And then just the fact that like, a lot of his assists can just be here, Luka, and then like Luka just does something ridiculous. So like, that's a nice edge to have there. So I like him to have over 3.5 assists in every game.
Yeah, I do think that over assist pairs nicely here with underscoring because there's a little bit, and Matt talked about this on the series preview, of just like the defenders can maybe stop the scoring a little bit, but he's going to still be able to get an advantage, be able to create for someone else. Now you got PJ Washington, Derek Jones shooting an open jumper. And, at some point we're going to have to let these guys play with our money a little bit too. To transition into Jayson Tatum, I have one more Kyrie fade bet that I haven't decided on. I think I know which way I lean, but I need you guys to help me on this one. So there's a 12-1 bet on Jayson Tatum to outscore Kyrie Irving in every single game. Now, first, I'm like, okay, for the same reason I don't want to play the game-to-game Kyrie, why would I want this? He's going to have the one game where he just goes off. I don't need that. I lost the bet now. However, if I'm right about Kyrie's scoring being suppressed, so here's the numbers. In the 11 games, the last 2 rounds, he has scored 22 points or less, 8 of the 11. Jayson Tatum has scored 23 or more points, 8 straight games. You might recall 23 is more than 22. So if Jayson Tatum scores 23 all 8 games, or whatever number of games we get here, and Kyrie is, about 75-ish% to go under that, and if Tatum outscores Kyrie every game, I think it kind of has to be a short series. So I think we have a better chance that it's like a 5-game series or something shorter now, because I don't see that going great for Dallas. I don't know. Like the number basically is, if Tatum is 60% to outscore Kyrie in any given game, then I need him to be able, that's the percentage, that's the break even here. He has to be 60% for 5 games for this to be the right bet. 12-1 is long. I love my long shots, but it still feels like Kyrie can just go off. Jim, you're the detractor on my Kyrie bet here, so I'm going to let you respond. I think I'm leaning against it. Should I be leaning more against it and not doing this bet?
I do think that the Kyrie ceiling does make me nervous. I referenced the last time he was in the finals, but even this postseason, he's got a 40, he's got several in the 30s. And Tatum, for having that pretty high floor, he does, Boston is a big blowout team. I think if there was a way to bet that there'd be multiple blowout wins in a series, I think we'd probably all be over it, because it's 2, high 3-point volume teams. Those are going to lead to, if one team's hitting, one team's not, it's going to, that number is going to get to be a pretty big spread. So that's what makes me nervous about it. But I will say that I like that it kind of plays hand in hand with the short series. The only thing that made me nervous about Joe's Kyrie is that if Kyrie's playing well and getting assists, that's going to lead to a longer series. It's like that one almost is the inverse of it, which makes me a little bit nervous. But obviously you're getting a longer number for the Tatum one. So I probably would avoid the Tatum one just because of Kyrie's ceiling. But again, am I just living in fear of Kyrie and because I've doubted him too much this postseason? Entirely possible.
I mean, if we're being fair, I think we're all living in fear of Kyrie for any number of reasons, these NBA finals and just life in general. Let's get into Jayson Tatum. I think Tatum actually, like Luka, is a really high floor option that a lot of our every game type bets are going to fit in well with Tatum here as well. The guy's going to play a lot of minutes, just fill up the box score, do a lot of stuff. Not quite on the scoring like Luka, hopefully for our Luka series leader bet. But Jim, you're looking at Tatum's rebounding this series.
Yeah, I'm looking to play this a couple different ways. I'll lead with this. So Tatum to lead the series, you can get it minus 110 out there if you shop around a little bit. So I think the first thing when I looked at this was like, oh, well, Porzingis is going to come back. So actually, is there room to, look for a longer shot here? Porzingis actually, I always reference pbpstats.com, my favorite site there. It shows the impact of other players on an individual when they are either on or off the court. Porzingis basically has no impact on Tatum's rebound. So I don't think that that's actually going to be, Tatum's pulling down double-digit rebounds this postseason. I don't think Porzingis being back is going to have a huge effect. What both of these teams do, and I think it's interesting because this is kind of a head-to-head market with Luka. Tatum is definitely the favorite. But both of these teams, what they really love doing is having their bigs box out and their tall wing, who's like their lead ball handler as well, actually grabs the rebound and goes. So if you look at potential rebound chances, Luka and Jayson Tatum both look like they're kind of outperforming. You'd almost be like, oh, let me regress this player to the mean because they're not going to continue pulling down 65 to 70% of the potential rebounds. But actually they are, because the bigs are purposefully, especially you'll see it with like Al Horford, Daniel Gafford's done it a lot with Dallas. They'll put the body on the other player to really make sure that the rebound's not going to that player, and then it allows Luka or Tatum to get the ball and go. And you'll notice it because Tatum really doesn't get that many offensive rebounds. They're basically all defensive rebounds, and to wait for them to get in like a soft transition. I think it's a really smart thing that, teams that have these big wings should really kind of lean into as much as they can. So with that being said, Luka, he is averaging less. So I do think that side of it, I want to avoid, but there's also the fact that Tatum, I think, is going to be on Lively at times during the series as well. I know Matt mentioned that when we were kind of kicking around matchup stuff in the Slack. If Tatum is on Lively and someone else is boxing out, any other potential big or PJ Washington or Luka, I really think it could be a great rebounding series as a whole for Tatum. I've got a couple other ways to attack it, but I think the first floor of this is just don't overthink it. Tatum to lead the series in rebounds at minus 110. I think he's going to have a really good series on that front.
Yeah, I tried. We'll get into rebounding itself a little bit later. Luka, I see as a plus 185. And so naturally, like I got to speak for myself. On the series props leaders, I naturally always want to find the plus guy, right? Like I don't want to just bet the favorite. What fun is that? I want to make some money. But I think in this series, Luka and Tatum are both such safe floors and such sure producers that it almost either is play it now if you like it, or also maybe, Luka drops 14 rebounds in game one. Maybe now you play Tatum. Maybe you jump in later after you're getting suddenly a discounted price mid-series on it. So, Jim, you mentioned you had other rebounding angles for Tatum. What else you got?
Yeah, one of the ones overlaps. I think someone else is on this as well, but Tatum, here it is, the Dellera special. Tatum to grab 8+ rebounds every game at plus 220. So he's reached this in 12 of 14 this postseason. The two he didn't was a 6 and a 7. Tatum is one of a couple Celtics whose minutes I think could go up in this finals. Boston, I'm sure you've all heard, have they been tested? They do have a little bit of room to add minutes to the big name players that they really want to go with here. So I think, alongside the fact that I just said, they're really purposefully trying to get Tatum these boards to get him out and pushing the offense. He's basically been there this postseason. He had his best rebounding season of his career. This number, I actually don't usually join Joe on these, but I like the one he found earlier, and this will be my version of it, is Tatum to grab 8+ rebounds in every game.
Yeah, we are all actually on a Tatum every game bet, or a couple here. So, Joe, I'm going to let you jump in, and then I'll chime in with mine afterward.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Tatum, I agree with you, Jim, on your thought process that these guys should probably play like a couple more minutes in the finals. And I think, when you really think about it, I think it goes into the fact with the Porzingis injury too, because you don't know like how long his health is going to like last, right? So like you don't want to have a series that drags out because you're like, well, like I don't want to play Tatum like 45 minutes. Like, play your healthy dudes 45 minutes, get in, get out, get the series over with as fast as you can. Because like, if it does drag, number one, that means that Dallas is, staying in the series, but also it means that like there's more minutes, there's more chance of injury. If Porzingis goes out, like we'll talk about it more later, but I think that's super, super important. So I do go along with what you're saying, in terms of some of these minutes upticks for guys like Tatum, and some of these other guys on the Celtics. But I like the over assists as well. So there's a prop for Tatum to record 5+ assists in every game during the series. He's had 5 or more in 79% of games during this postseason, 11 of 14. He's averaging 5.9 assists per game. He really kind of has turned it up. He turned it up in particular against Indiana. I think that this is a good spot for him as well. Like, I think that he's going to be the guy, especially after, Jaylen Brown won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. I know he's happy for him. Like, the press conference was good. The vibes seem to be good. But at the same time, I think that, he's going to want to put his imprint on these games. And I think that with Porzingis there, you have another guy who's not just like, he's a pick and pop, but he can also perform in the post. I think there's the potential for a couple extra, like, easier assists. So I like the 4.5 in every game. And I'm also with you on the 8 or more rebounds in every game. He's really just been smoking that as well. He's had 8 or more in 12 of 14 games. And Indiana and Cleveland, those are a little bit, like the Cleveland matchup in particular was a tougher one. And then Indiana just, they had a couple of games where they just didn't miss at all. So that kind of hurts any rebounding prop there as well.
Yeah, I'll chime in on both of those. So I like the Tatum 5 assists every game. I know I chided you for the every games, but I think Tatum is the way to do it. I don't think you said the line. That one is plus 650. So the math on that, if we assume a 6-game series, then that has to hit 72% of the time for that to be in our favor. And you said he's hit that 79%. Just the last 2 rounds, he's hit that number 89% of the time, all but one game. So I do think that is a good floor play for him. And again, like, let's be real. With these bets, the most likely scenario is we're going to have 5, 5, 6, 7, 5, and a 4. We're going to miss one game by one spot, probably. That's why the odds are long. But if you play a few of these and have the odds in your favor, as with any long shot, probably one hits. And as long as we're hitting one more often than we're losing like 6, 7, 10 of these with the long odds, that's kind of what we're looking at here. I agree to an extent on the Tatum 8+ rebounds, except I don't like playing that way at plus 220. I'm playing Jayson Tatum double-double every game at plus 1,400. So that is at BetMGM, our sponsor, 14-1. Basically, it's the same bet, but I need 10 rebounds, not 8 rebounds. So far in the playoffs, 14 games for the Celtics. Tatum has had a double-double in all but one of the games. Now, unfortunately, all but one game each series. This is the problem. He's missed it in 3 games, but there's been one each series that he's missed. Again, that's the problem with these every game ones, is you never know. You never know when it's a blowout one way or the other, or he just didn't get the rebounds or whatever. But that's the breaks of the game here. 14-1. To me, I want to play this not just the 8 rebounds, because the basically 2-1 to 14-1 is such a big jump in payout that it's worth it to me to take on the risk of the extra rebounds, especially because in the 3 games where he hasn't had a double-double, he's not getting 9 rebounds or 8 rebounds. He's had 8, 7, 6. So when he misses, he's missing the other bet anyway in 2 of the 3 scenarios. So if I'm risking him, like, his floor is actually pretty steadily around 10, but when he drops below, it's not right below, it's like swinging well below sometimes. So I don't want, if I'm going to risk the every game thing, I don't think I want to risk it for a 2-1 payout. Like, there's too much variance on 5, 6, 7 games to get that on 8 rebounds is not nothing. Like that is, you don't just walk into 8 rebounds, no matter how much you're playing, even with Jayson Tatum. So to me, if we get 6 games, 64% likely is the number for break even here. 64% to hit a double-double is what you need in 6 games to get a 14-1 in our favor. He's had a double-double 79% of the games so far in the playoffs. So I actually think that the math here is very much in our favor. For me, on long shots on our podcast, this is my favorite long shot. Jim, I think you're also looking at this one as well.
Yeah, I love this one as well. So I treated this as this is team escalator here. So we grabbed the Auntie Anne's pretzel on the first floor with the series lead in rebounds. We went up to the second floor and maybe got a hat at lids for the 8+ rebounds every game. Now we're on the third floor, the top of the escalator. We're gonna go watch the finals in the AMC, and we've got the double every game. So the full escalator ride up. I love all three, and I'm actually with you in. I think the value is actually the best on the top floor of the escalator with the double every game. That's my favorite of the three.
Yeah, I think also, there's a line you can get Tatum to average 10 rebounds, which is like, don't be fooled, because there's a difference between 10 rebounds and over 9.5, right? It's a 0.1 difference, but you wind up paying like 15 extra cents for it. I think you can kind of use that bet to either that one or the series rebounder one to fund your double in every game type of bet. So that's how I would break up my wager if you were looking to do that. Plus double, you do get an extra out with the assist if you can get there.
True.
Just to go off script for a second on this one, as I'm thinking out loud here. So Jim, you're on Tatum to lead the series in rebounding, but you're paying a minus number on it. Why not just skip the other variants of other players and Luka or whoever putting a big rebounding and just take Tatum to average 10 or more? That is to say, do you think it's more likely that Tatum would lead the series but be under 10? So we have no rebounding leader at 10 or more? Or do you think it's more likely that Tatum hits this and goes over 10 a game but also doesn't lead the series? Because we're getting a better price on the 10 per game.
I still like to lead the series in rebounds. And one of the points I failed to mention earlier is I think that this will be more minutes for Lively and less for Gafford. And of the two bigs that do the box out thing to let Luka get rebounds, Gafford is by far the one who clears out more and grabs less of the potential rebounds. Lively grabs he grabs like I think it's over like around the 55% of those contested rebounds. So if I do want to target the Luka-ness of this a little bit. I think Tatum does have a head-to-head edge, and KP coming back hurts him less than more minutes for Lively hurts Luka.
Makes sense. I like
That's
it.
fair.
All right. So we did Jayson Tatum, Boston's first star. That means we need to get to Boston's second star, which of course is Kristaps Porzingis, not any other such names like Derek White and, whoever other names you might come up with. Kristaps Porzingis, I think, is Boston's X factor in the series. I think he is the swing factor in the series, period. We don't know what it looks like with his health. We don't know even if he's going to play in game one, let alone how much will he play? Will there be a minutes limit? Will he be better early and then wear down again late? Is there re-injury? We don't know. We don't know any of that stuff. We're not here breaking news for it. But I think I wrote about him as the X factor for Boston on defense. Like, look, today is Al Horford's 38th birthday. I love me and Al Horford. I will probably genuinely cry if Al Horford gets to lift the trophy. That will be the moment for me. That's the story of the finals to me. I wanted Al Horford versus Mike Conley, so one of them was going to get to do it. I will settle for Al Horford if he gets it. I love Al Horford, but when you're 38, I will speak for myself as someone that is 40. You can't do the stuff you used to be able to do anymore. And I like Porzingis in the series so importantly because he can do the stuff that Al Horford can't do as well anymore. On offense, he can space the floor, and he is a natural, pure three-point shooter. Horford's become a pretty good shooter, but he can be very streaky. And there are games where he's just taking another shot, taking another one. You're like, bro, 12 threes already? What are you doing? We don't need that anymore. Let Tatum shoot another pull-up J. We'll take that. We don't need any more Horford threes. We always need more Porzingis threes. A Porzingis rhythm three is going to be a pretty good shot. And he's got the size to get it off over pretty much anybody. And importantly on offense, Porzingis in the clutch, I think, is a really big swing factor for Boston. We know about Tatum and Brown taking the dribble, pull up, and we don't like that in clutch. Porzingis posting up is not a thing they go to super often, but as an alternative to the muckiness of what Boston traditionally does in the clutch, I think that's actually a pretty important weapon in a series where we're a little worried, I think we're being honest, about what the clutch could look like for Boston. So Porzingis on that end, Horford's not going to be that guy in the clutch. He's going to be standing in the corner hoping we don't have to shoot the open three, right? And on defense, Porzingis for rim protection and just defending out in space. You don't want a sight in this series. If you're backing Boston, you don't want to see Al Horford out the top switching on to Luka Doncic. bad things are about to happen to you if you are a Boston backer, and that's the spot, because Horford can't stay with Luka at the top, and he also can't recover and get back to Lively or Gafford, who are about to be dunking on you behind you if Boston didn't scramble to recover. And if they did, then Luka's about to hit somebody else that's open for a three-point shot now. So Porzingis doesn't magically fix all of that. He does happen to be like 7 inches taller and a little faster and a little more recovery room. So I think he's really important in both sides of the series. I think you guys both agree that he's very important, in part that, like, I'm betting Boston. A spoiler for both of you, like, you're not really totally on a side in the series. And I think part of that, perhaps, I'll let you speak for yourself, but I think part of it is the uncertainty with the unknown of Porzingis. Joe, I know that you think very importantly of Porzingis in this series. What are you thinking about him, and how are you playing his props here?
So I really like Porzingis in this series. I think that he's super important. I like his over 1.5 threes in game one. I like his over 1.5 threes per game throughout the course of the series. I know that you are on his points per game for the series. I like that too, honestly. For me, the reason that I was with the 1.5 threes, and I actually think that you should play a little bit of threes leader as well. The reason that I was on this, and the reason that I like Porzingis so much, is the way that I think he's going to be able to stress the Dallas defense. In particular, when these two teams played back in March, that was the one game where really kind of everybody was healthy. However, Dallas kind of, they came out of that slog out of the All-Star break. They were just like terrible for like 2 weeks. And it's like, if you take that out, you're just like, oh my God, this is the best team in the NBA. But they had like a 5-game stretch. One of these games was a blowout where they got their doors blown off by Boston. But the one thing that happened in that game was Daniel Gafford started, and Kristaps Porzingis came and played him right off the floor. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that he just banged 3 threes in the first quarter and really was like showed how, Dallas's defense didn't really have a good answer for him. So I think that the over 1.5 threes per game to me is great. The reason I like it is because in the event that he does, like, maybe he gets hurt or the minutes are limited, and like, I know that he gets looks in the fourth quarter, but it's not the same because it's just like the Tatum and Brown just do, like, they just ISO, they do their thing, right? But he's important for like the way that the offense kind of flows in the fourth quarter. But I like it because the 1.5 threes, you don't need a lot. Like, there's obviously variance there, but I think the floor is so high against what Dallas kind of is going to give that, he can get that even in a little bit more limited minutes. If he's only playing maybe like 25 minutes a game or something like that to start the series, or even for the whole series. Whereas with like the 15.4 points, I like it as well. But to me, I think it just requires like a little bit more consistency in the minutes. So that was my only other concern. As for threes leader, it kind of ties again into this variance idea, where I think that he can stretch the floor against Dallas. I think that he is going to be somebody that's used as like a pressure point. I think that there's 2 ways to bet the threes leader. I think that you can either bet it for the series. I think you should play that a little bit. And honestly, if he's going to play in game one, I think this is the opportunity that you can take to kind of bet against the Daniel Gafford starting lineup early. And I like betting Porzingis to lead game one in threes as well. So you can get that about 18-1. So the series leader is, like, depending on where you get it, it's like 22, 23, 24-1, right? But for game one in particular, that's the game where I think that the Mavericks aren't going to deviate from what has been working. And what has been working is Gafford starts, Lively comes in after. And I think that that's going to be something that Boston specifically targets. They know it works. And it's a way to kind of say, like, guess what, buddy? Porzingis is good. He's back. He's healthy. And like, we're going to push this button and we're going to make you adjust early. So that's part of why I like that. And his defense, his offense, it's so important. I think that you should even be playing Finals MVP. I think there's a narrative there, given the fact that, he was on the Mavericks before. I know everybody talks about the Kyrie thing with being on Boston, but Porzingis had like a pretty like ugly-ish divorce with the Dallas Mavericks as well. So I think Finals MVP at 60-1, you can get this at 50-1. Like, it's widely available there too. I think that that's definitely worth a sprinkle for a guy that can impact the game on both sides of the floor. And there is a little bit of narrative about, like, coming back from injury, potentially leading the team in threes, all that jazz. So I think the numbers on Porzingis are a little short. I think he's really good. And that's surprisingly not really a Knicks bias talking here.
That's true. I didn't even think about the Knicks angle of it all. I really like the game one Porzingis threes leader, Joe. I think a lot more than the series one. With the series, suddenly you're dealing with the injury redux and you're dealing with who else got hot and so many other factors. But just one game, he could have 3 or 4 threes 8 minutes into the game suddenly, and the place is rocking and Boston goes up 15. I can see that game. I can close my eyes and picture that game happening. And one game, 4 threes that could lead. That could be it for the game. He might not even need any others after that. So I think I like that better than the series leader. I like, as far as playing the Porzingis prop, I like you mentioned, I'm playing the over 15.4 points a game. I prefer that to the threes. I think you made a good case for it's much easier to hit the threes, even if you're on a minutes limit. All you need is 2 of them. Yeah. I'm looking more just for consistency on how often is he hitting consistently, getting to the points here. So to me, the over 15.4 is not even really a bet on Porzingis playing well or doing anything in particular. It's really just a bet on, do I think he plays 25 minutes a game?
Yeah.
And frankly, I'm already making that bet by betting Boston, because if I didn't think he was going to be able to do at least that, I would not really want any part of Boston either. So this regular season, Porzingis had 47 games where he played at least 25 minutes. He scored 11 or more every single game in there. So that is the total basement floor for him, is 11. I need 15.4. But if he's getting double digits, worst case scenario, when he gets to those 25-minute games, then he's probably getting, he averaged 20 in the regular season. This number is only priced this low specifically because of the uncertainty and the possibility of a minutes limit or that sort of thing. So then I wondered, okay, well, what about if you're not Tatum or Luka? These guys, we joke about Shea scored 31 100 times this season, right? There are guys that are scoring enough points that they're hitting this high floor each night. Porzingis at 20 a game probably isn't that. So I used a Basketball Reference, and I looked at 6 game spans for the season, thinking, okay, were there stretches where Porzingis just went cold, or where the shots weren't falling, whatever. And if you look at 6 game spans, he had 52 of those for the year. He averaged at least 15.7, so clearing this, all but 2 of the 6 game spans. So 50 out of 52, he hit that. The only 2 that he missed both included a 6-minute game when he scored 2 points, and obviously must have left injured in January. But there's 4 other streaks that included that one and still hit it as well. So that took one really bad moment of how I lose the bet here, which is first quarter calf pops, and he goes out, and now the average is ruined. And Joe, to your point, maybe he already hit a couple threes and you were safe, and now I'm out.
Yeah.
I like the points being safer. On the same thing as the threes, he averaged at least 1.5 threes in a 6-game span, 40 out of 52 spans. So I if I'm betting on minutes and the points being stable within the minutes, you're getting an easier out to the threes, I think. But I think in the end, I think we like both. 40 out of 52 is pretty good still too.
And I do have a note on that too, because in most of the underwriting, depending on the book, that's offering this, they're saying that you have to play 3 or more, 3+ games in order for the bet to be considered action on those per game bets. So if his Achilles just pops in game 1, it looks like they're gonna void it out, just based on the way that I'm interpreting this right now. But even then, it's if he plays limited minutes in one game, he still would have to get out there again, and then maybe there's an opportunity to kind of bring it back up. So, but good points on what you're saying though.
You're gonna have to. I'll just say this: you're gonna have to send a couple of emails and chats if you want to be getting your money back on the he only played a game and you bet the over.
Yeah, screenshot.
You're gonna have to do a little work to get your money back on that one.
Screenshot your bets.
Yeah. Make sure you have a clear record of the rules that you're betting here, and check each book. Each book has slightly different rules and house rules on these sort of bets. You got to know the rules. You got to know the game that you're playing. So. No slander meant. Make sure that you know the rules and make sure that you are aware of the market. Jim, you have thoughts on Porzingis?
Yeah, so I didn't actually log any bets in our rundown here on Porzingis. I saved mine for the actual second best player on Boston, which it's still not Jaylen Brown, but we'll get to the actual second best player on Boston. But I do skew with you guys on the over, and I think that that a lot of the logic you laid out is good. And I'll say that it also, I think it's incredibly hard for these coaches to actually follow their minutes restrictions. I was watching the W the other day, fifth regular season game of the season, right? And Connecticut, they're working with Brianna Jones back from an Achilles tear. She missed last season with Achilles. What the game they've got her on like a 25-minute limit. Game's close in the fourth quarter. We'll leave her out a few more minutes. Game goes to overtime. Guess who's out there the entire overtime? These coaches are just so sicko competitive that on like regular season games are leaving these players out there. As you know, as long as the player is comfortable, we'll leave you out there. So I think, you know, I'm sure they will say there is a minutes restriction. If this game is close, I promise you he's going to go a little bit over that minutes restriction, especially if he's playing well. I really think that leans into it. And I'll say this. I think the natural counter to these Porzingis bets, to our every game bets, to any of the overs we've talked about here, we do need to circle back one more time to these. There being potential for blowouts in this series. I really do think that is something to think about when we're loading up on these overs or these every game type bets, because we have the top 2 3-point variance shooting teams. Now in the finals, you're going to leave your guys out there a little bit longer. But Porzingis, of all the players, seems the most susceptible to this. He is the guy, you know, I jokingly said that, you know, Steph White's leaving her players out there in the fourth regular season game of the year. But if it starts to be a 30-point game, I don't think Porzingis is going to get pushed at that. But that's when you say, okay, we'll save him for the games that are close. So I think that's the only push to it. But I think that especially some of these where you're playing like a ceiling, where it's like, you know what, this series turned out, you know, we thought there were going to be some blowouts. No, these are really good games. They're staying close in the fourth quarter. And Porzingis, you know, we said 25-minute limit. It's more like 30, and, you know, he's going up to 32. Suddenly you're getting, you know, numbers that are not priced at all accurately. And I do think that the overside of it is the side I'd want to be on, with the caution of the blowouts. If you're one who's, I don't know, if you're out there modeling and you see a lot of, you know, variance in these game scores that you're coming around to, maybe these are the ones that you sit out, because I think that is the downside to the overs, the every games, and those types of bets.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, and notice none of us are even looking at an every game on Porzingis here. It's definitely an average sort of thing.
Yeah.
I will say too, though, to your point is very good about, like, you got to be careful with all the overs, because, you know, we know to factor in that whatever can go bad, but injuries and blowouts are part of reasons that unders are just more likely to hit in general. I will say, though, to your point, even though it is correct that this is a 3-pointer series and there are going to be some blowouts, the fact that it's a 3-pointer series also means that the blowouts can turn back the other way.
Very true.
Yeah, coaches need to keep shooting and, like, keep staying in. We've seen both these teams blow big leads, and we've seen both these teams come back from big leads. So I don't think that makes Porzingis, you know, like, Porzingis still is the guy that maybe plays a little less because of the injury situation. So I don't know that I'm necessarily debunking that particular thought, but I'm less worried. Like, if you look, I wondered, like, Tatum and Luka, I wondered with them, are there games where they only played like 36 or 33 or something? Because of, there's not, like, they're just playing these dudes. Because, like, I mean, look, if you don't play Jayson Tatum 42 minutes, then you are now playing Sam Hauser 15 minutes, and whatever lead you thought you had, you ain't got it anymore. Like, it's not happening, because you got Luka still gunning, and it's Sam Hauser instead of Tatum and the other guys. So I think too, it's June. Dallas, the team that finished later, got an entire week off before the series.
Yep.
And we have more than one game off between every game of the series except game 3 and 4 in Dallas. So, like, Matt and I talked about in the series preview, will Dallas have a bench advantage because they've got more playable guys than, well, you know, Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser and Luke Cornett and whatever.
Those guys are elite, man.
And I don't know, like, I agree that Dallas's guys are slightly more playable. I just think Boston has done nothing for 2 months, and they're going to play Tatum and Drew and Derek and Jaylen Brown 42, 45, 47. Like, they could play all 48 for all that I care. Like, we've seen all 4 of those dudes play massive minute loads in past playoffs. We've seen Drew play, like, entire games.
Yeah.
Seen Tatum and Brown do that. So I think we're just going to see the top guys play a ton of minutes. Again, ironic that I bring all that up under the Porzingis section, because Porzingis is not playing all 48 minutes. It's not going to happen. All right, let's get into just kind of in wrapping up here, more rapid fire. A few other markets. We talked about all the stars. We kind of did the rebounding market already here. Jim is on Tatum in the rebounding market. I talked about Luka plus 185. I had looked at Daniel Gafford here. There's a prop up at one book, Gafford to have 4 more rebounds every game. And that one just jumped out to me. Not in any way I was like, oh, I can't wait to get my hands on some Gafford props this series. That was never a thought that I had. 4 is just so low for a dude that, like, literally that is a bet on, will Daniel Gafford not get played off the court? I'm not making the bet anymore because I've talked to both of you and to Matt, and all of you seem to think that Daniel Gafford is a real threat to get played off the court. When Gafford played 23 minutes or more this season, he had 4 rebounds or more 54 to 56 times. When he played 17 minutes, he did it in 95% of his 82 games. So it's literally just a bet on, will Gafford play at least 17 minutes a game? If you think he does that and does not get played off the court, 4 more rebounds is an extremely low number for Gafford. It's plus 160. It's only up at one book. Joe, you are specifically fading the idea of Daniel Gafford, looking at possibly like a lively sort of rebounding edge here, correct?
Yeah, I to me, like, it goes into what I talked about with Porzingis. Like, I just don't think that this is a great Daniel Gafford series. I think that, maybe we do get some Gafford, but I think that they're going to have to flip-flop these rotations a bit, and you're going to see a little bit more Lively. Like, our conversations have been like, is Lively the 3rd best player on the team for Dallas, and he's coming off the bench? I think that that's untenable for the finals. I think you can't have that scenario. Like, I get it that it works on like certain teams. I don't think that it's going to work here. Especially like, even if he does come off the bench, he's going to need to play way more minutes than Gafford. So to me, I like the idea of maybe betting on Lively as like a rebounding leader. And that's part of what gave me a little bit of pause with Tatum, with Luka, just as like another guy, like, especially at the number you're getting is like at least 10-1 in the market. So I think that that's, maybe an angle. And for me, like, I like Gafford under 1.5 blocks in game 1. And I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but the reason I like this is that Boston gets blocked at the lowest rate in the NBA. They consistently don't allow blocks. We bet this every single game last series with Miles Turner. And the only reason he went over in any game, we went over in one game on what really was like a Jaylen Brown just like dribbling off of his leg. And they called it a block. Yeah. Otherwise, he hit the under hit in every single game. So like, to me, this is just not a great Gafford series. And I'm looking to fade him like it almost at a junction, but like kind of what Brandon's saying with the 4+, it's a low threshold. He's going to have to play minutes. Lively's young, but like just with foul troubles, like whatever, I think it's going to be hard for him to play, like 40 minutes a game. Like, I think it's probably going to be a little bit more of an even split.
All right. Well, I'm sufficiently off Daniel Gafford. You guys have talked me out of it. Jim, it's your time. We're going to talk about the threes leader market here, and we're finally getting to the second best player in the Boston Celtics, Derek White. Take it away.
Yeah, so with Tatum, we did the escalator. We're doing a similar escalator here with Derek White. So I'll walk you through 3 bets here with level 1, level 2, level 3. So Derek White, his current 3-point average per game line is 2.7 made threes per game. This was his regular season number, but he's making 3.4 per game in this postseason. So part of that is more minutes. And I'll circle back to that in a second because he actually hasn't reached the ceiling there. But he's also just taking more volume. The Celtics are really leaning into his shooting. This hasn't been crazy shooting luck. He's hitting about the same number, a little bit higher. But he's a player who I don't have any doubt that he can shoot a little bit higher. He's an incredible player, second best player in Celtics, like I said. And like I said, he's playing about 35 minutes a game in the postseason. There's a lot of room there on the ceiling. And I do think this is going to be an incredibly important series for him, likely drawing the Kyrie assignment, the main Kyrie assignment. And I think he's going to do a great job on him. And I think that they will notice. One guy, if we somehow were able to bet Peyton Pritchard unders, I would be, talk about game 1 bet. I might be looking at Peyton Pritchard unders. I really don't think he's going to be able to hang at the level he has in previous series. I think Derek White is going to be scooping up 40 plus minutes a game. So if we're basing this off of his regular season minutes, he's added volume, he's added minutes. This number is just too low right now. So he even cleared this number in the Indy series, which was his worst shooting series. He was at 2.8 made, and he only made a third of his threes, which is below par for him. So if he can clear that in that series with lower minutes and not his best shooting numbers, I really like this this is one where I like the first level of the bet the most. But I'll give you two others as well. I like Derek White to lead the series in threes at plus 350. Similar logic here. I'll note that Luka is the favorite right now, and Luka is coming off a series in which the shot was absolutely going. Now, if that fan from Minnesota didn't get flown to Boston, I don't know if we get the same result here, because Luka really seemed to like to hit those threes right in that guy's face. So if we take out that Minnesota series, Luka was right at 2.8, which is right around what I said that the bad series was for Derek White. So I think these guys should be being priced closer to about even. Getting Derek White at plus 350, if you shop around, that's a really good number I like. And then if we go all the way up to the top floor, I don't like this top floor as much as the other, maybe to continue this tortured metaphor. This is like, instead of walking into the AMC to watch the finals, we stumbled into an art house movie. It could be good, it could be terrible. This is like a nice long shot here at plus 1600 for him to score 15 points or more in every game. So of the 10 games in which he's played at least 32 minutes, again, now we're cutting out injury or blowout when we say we set that bar, but he's hit that in 7 of 10, and the 3 in which he missed, it was by a single basket. So again, this is probably not my favorite of the bunch. Maybe we stumble into the art house movie and it's Poor Things, which sucks. I didn't like it at all. I wanted to be out after half an hour. Maybe that's what happens in game 1. He's down at 8 points a game, and I'm like, man, that was a dumb bet. But again, it's the top floor of the escalator, 16-1. I don't hate it as a sprinkle to kind of top off this being high on Derek White in the series, and mostly being high on, I think he's going to get volume. I think he's going to get minutes. I think he's really in line for a good series. Finals MVP, if you want to take it, hop up under the roof after the game and really take it to the top floor. I'm all over Derek White. I do think he's the Celtics' second best player. He does a lot of the unknown things, unseen things. So I don't know if he'll ever get the credit of a Finals MVP. But I mean, we've seen some of those semi-obscure players get in the past. My favorite level of this is the first floor, the Derek White over 2.7 threes. I really like to lead the series, but there's a couple if you want to get crazy with it as well.
Yeah, I had my playoff MVP ladder article up through the conference finals, and I have Derek White as the top Celtic right now. Like, I have him as the most valuable Celtic so far, just slightly ahead of Tatum, literally one spot on the ladder. I think Derek White should have been the conference finals MVP. He averaged more than 2 stocks a game, or more than 4 stocks a game in that series. So What he is so important to them. He also literally hit the series clinching 3 to send them to the finals. And he also got no votes for finals or for conference finals MVP. So I think, like, with Boston, the reason we're looking at these long shots is because there's not like the traditional Luka type superstar that's just going to like hit every single category and automatically win. That's sort of as Tatum, but not quite that level. That's why Brown just snuck through, and like Brown, the numbers don't really tell you that Brown should have been the conference finals MVP. The scoring was about equal, and it's like, well, but he's more efficient, and he had the one shot, and there was this moment. Like, that's fine. That's fine. We're only voting on what will the voters do, or we're only betting on what will the voters do, and that's all part of the game. I think the point with Boston and why we're all looking at possible long shots is I think there's a possibility with Boston more than most teams of a plurality vote of like, okay, there's not a 30 points a game score. If there is, that's the guy that's the wins finals MVP. Instead, we're looking at like, okay, well, we got Tatum at 26. We got Brown at 23. We got Porzingis at 20. Could he be the MVP? We got Derek White at 19 and great defense. And he had that memorable clutch play and the steal, and he, shut down Kyrie. Like, I think that's the reason why we're looking here. I do have one more Derek White possible. This is like a second and half floor escalator bet for you. This is the one I was looking at, Jim. You can bet him to be the leading scorer in any finals game, 8-1 odds.
Ooh.
So he did that once against Miami. He also tied for the leading scorer once against Miami. I don't know how that would count for this bet necessarily. And he also missed by 3 points one other game this postseason. What do you think about Derek White to be the leading scorer? That is the leading Boston scorer in any game is 8-1. What do you think?
Oh, even it's just I was thinking it was a little bit short, but to get it as just Boston, yeah. I mean, twist my arm. Another Derek White bet I'll add to my portfolio. I think that all of us do think this could be a strong series for Tatum, but Derek White does have that 3-point variance. I think he had. I'm guessing the game that he led was a game he hit 7 threes. I mean, he has that type of ceiling where he can really go off. That's another part of, this bet. Now, all the guys in this market are going to have a ceiling to that degree, to some degree. But I do think that, he really does have the ability to put up big numbers. And the biggest thing is just, I really do think that of all the Celtics, he has the biggest gap between the minutes he's playing right now and the minutes I think they should be playing him in this series. So I think that's part of why I'm really high on the previous, like they're pricing it as if that's not a factor. And I see it as a factor in this series.
The one note I'd add to that is I would caution against the game one angle specifically and the game one Peyton Pritchard angle. Boston has not had to limit those guys yet. They haven't, like, Missoula hasn't had to make the tough decision to be like, all right, we're playing our 6 dudes now and that's it. And a lot of times, usually teams have to like screw it up once before they actually fix the mistake later on. So I think that's a smart angle. Peyton Pritchard actually is pretty good in both Dallas games this season. I don't know what to make of that because that doesn't really make any sense to me. But I think especially given that he was good previously in a couple of games, I think he at least gets a chance. Like if you're Boston, you'd really rather not play a 6-man rotation for the next 3 weeks. So I would be careful with it maybe in game one. As far as threes go, you're on Derek White. I was looking at Derek White. I was also looking at Jayson Tatum. And Joe, I think you're on Tatum here, correct?
Yeah, I like Tatum. I think that Jim's right with Derek White as well. Like I don't hate honestly playing both. My thing here was that Tatum, he's taking the third most threes per game out of any player between both of these teams. Derek White, he's behind Derek White and Luka Doncic. The reason I like Tatum though is I think this is like kind of like a tough cover for Dallas. Like I know that, maybe they throw PJ Washington, maybe they throw Derrick Jones Jr. on him. Like maybe they throw Luka on him, honestly. Like I don't really know what they're going to do, but at the same time, what we did see from Dallas last series, and what they've kind of consistently been doing is they just are like stacking the paint and they're saying like, nope, you're not going to take any shots at the rim. You're not going to get any jumpers like in the paint. And to me, honestly, that might be a good thing for Tatum because like if Tatum is just not going to be allowed to take like a 15-foot jumper, that's probably a good thing, honestly. So I like the fact that, maybe he can take more threes here and, maybe it is a little bit harder to cover him like out in space. Like when Boston is like running like high pick and roll and they have so many different players that they can, their offense is so malleable. I think that this is a good opportunity for Tatum. Plus when we look at what Tatum did against them this season, in one game, Tatum was 5 for 9 from 3, and that was in that March 1st game. And he just dominated. He was awesome. He had 32 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 of 9 from 3, and 7 of 7 from the free throw line. So I think that for me, you're getting a guy that is going to play. He is going to jack up these shots. And we saw it in the finals actually a little bit last year too. When he started to get rolling, he starts getting way more confident in his shot and he starts taking a lot more threes. So I think that the plus 850 to me is just too long of a number, especially when you look at the fact that Boston has done a pretty good job of limiting like 3-point opportunities generally to their opponents. So whereas Dallas, I think has in the playoffs anyway, has kind of surrendered that look. Maybe they change things schematically, but at this juncture, I'm comfortable betting into this, knowing that Tatum is going to kind of get his shots when he wants them as well.
Yeah, I think as I looked at the threes market, Tatum and White are the names that look like if I was going to bet, that's who I would be betting right now. I think like you said, Joe, I wouldn't mind just getting both of those. I think that I'm going to not play a threes leader market yet, but this is the market that I'm going to be playing during the series. Like this is the one, again, we've talked about this a few times. Jim, you mentioned that like this is the 3-pointers series. These teams rank first for Boston, third for Dallas in most 3-point attempts. They're last in the league, 29th and 30th in 2-point attempts. So we're going to get a lot of threes. That means a lot of variance. That means a lot of unpredictability in this specific market. I think it sets up for there to be huge swings in the market. And I think all of us have played this particular market threes in a series because books consistently overprice the favorite and then make the other guys, the long shots, way too long. And in threes, when you can hit 4, 5, 6, 7 threes in a game, and when the guy that's leading only went 1 for 8 that night, that can swing in a hurry. And especially in a series where the series could swing back and forth, Dallas to Boston, where the series could go long and we might get, Luka series tend to go long. We might get a lot of chances on this one. I think, honestly, my instinct is Again, I talked about we want the long numbers. I think I'm going to end up wanting Luka in the market because he's just going to get the volume here. Like White's volume is up. Tatum gets pretty good volume, but Doncic still shoots more than both of them. So I think I will probably hope that he maybe has a poor game one and, Boston gets the game one win. Luka maybe only hits 1 or 2, and maybe that gives me a chance to come back on Luka at a plus number. It's the market, though, to me. If you want to bet the points, if you want to bet the rebounds, we've talked about those, set it and forget it. Like you get your bet in now, you're done, you're probably out. This is the one that I think this is the build a portfolio sort of situation here on the threes market. So that's why I'm playing that one. All right. In wrapping up, we've given out like 1,000 different prop bets at this point. Oh, by the way, just to confirm, Derek White, 8-1. That is to be the leading scorer in an NBA Finals game. So I'm going to like that one a little less now that Luka Doncic is also competing for my money. There are some fun Derek White ones out there, though. By the way, somehow this book I'm looking at has Derek White to make 25 or more threes in an NBA Finals. 25 is a lot, guys. 25 is a lot of threes. Like that's over 4 per game unless we get to 7 games. Just give me a guess. What's the number on Derek White 25 or more threes? What do you guys think?
It's definitely not long enough. Like it's probably like 18-1.
It's plus 350. So here's your best bet. Don't bet that bet. Bet all the other things we've talked about and don't bet that one. Joe, do you have any other prop
market right
angle?
there?
Yeah. Joe, other prop angles, any game to games, any other final thoughts before we do best bets and wrap up? Joe, Dellera, anything?
No, like I said earlier, I think I would look at Porzingis in game 1 for threes leader and Daniel Gafford under 1.5 blocks in game 1 too.
All right, Jim, anything else?
No, we've gone plenty long. I'll say you come listen to Cash that if you want to hear some more serious thoughts. Well, I'll save a couple nuggets for Joe's pod.
I like it. I'll probably do Kyrie Irving under 24.5, just game 1. I know I said I won't be playing every game, but I actually think that number will drop a little bit by a point or two, and I only see even the 24.5 at one book. So that's probably the one prop. I don't play usually a lot of props in game 1. I like to react after game 1, but that'd be my other one. All right, let's list off our best bets. We each gave out a lot of bets. There's a lot of stuff for folks to comb through. So, Joe, from this entire pod, just on props, what are your best bets for the NBA Finals?
I like Kristaps Porzingis over 1.5 threes per game, Luka points leader, Tatum 10+ rebounds per game, plus the double-double in every game.
All right, Jim Turvey, how about you?
I may give out one like even money and one long shot. I'll go Derek White over 2.7 threes per game. And then you heard it here. You didn't hear it here first. You heard it from Joe a second ago. Tatum double-double every game. I love that one as well.
All right. I am going to take Kyrie under 24.1. I have not been talked out of it. That's my favorite play of any type for the finals. I'll be on Luka points leader like Joe as well. And I'm going to make it 3 for 3. Tatum double-double every game. That's the family bet. If you're only making one long shot bet out of all the stuff we gave out, that has got to be the one that we want you to make.
What could go wrong?
14-1. Go get it. While watching, this can only end in heartbreak. I was going to suggest some crazy way this goes awry, but surprise us, NBA script writers. I'm sure it'll be all sorts of delightful. That's going to wrap it up for today's podcast. There was like 20, 25 bets in there for you. Bet all of them except Derek White, 25 threes. Do not bet that under any circumstances at plus 350. You can catch all sorts of stuff on the Buckets feed this week. You can catch more from the three of us at Cash That, Joe Dellera's podcast. We've got bets up in Buckets for series preview, how to bet the Mavs, how to bet the Celtics. We'll have a game 1 episode. There may be a finals MVP episode still to come. We got all sorts of stuff. We'll be coming to you all finals long, the rest of June. We made it. We've got our series bets in. That wraps up for tonight. Joe and Jim, thanks for coming on. As always, we'll catch you next time. Until then, let's get buckets.